Can you afford this $500,000 house? In today's video, we're going to be traveling to Gilbert, Arizona to walk through some numbers on a $500,000 house and how much income do you truly need to make to be able to afford this house. And before we hop into the video, I want to give a special shout out to Jose Alfaro, who actually commented on one of our other videos talking about the same scenario. So Jose, this one's for you. We're heading to Gilbert to break down the numbers on a $500,000 house. So we're just gonna head over to Zillow.com. As you know, that's where most of you start your home search. You're looking at homes online. So we're just gonna go to Gilbert, Arizona. And we've got a house here for $515,000. It's actually the cheapest house in the area. That's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. So let's take a look here at 2949 East Terrace Avenue. 3-bed, 2-bath, 1696 square feet. This house looks eerily similar to one of my first houses I bought, so which is kind of cool. But let's take a look at the numbers on the property. So one thing to take note already, we can see here that the property has an HOA fee. Now, as you folks are relocating to other parts of the country, like I mentioned before in some of my videos, when you get qualified, you want to make sure that your loan officer is taking into account some of these other taxes or fees that come along with buying property, because you have to account for the HOA fee as part of your debt to income ratio. Now, if your loan officer is max qualifying you, which is kind of what we're seeing lately because interest rates have jumped up so high, an extra $100 a month, $200 a month could easily take someone's debt to income ratio, or DTI, over the qualifying amount, and you could essentially not qualify for the property. So that's why it's always important to make sure that whoever you're working with, they understand the lay of the land and they're qualifying you for the right amount of debt when you qualify for the property. So we are going to account for the HOA fee. Let's take a look. This is always interesting to look at. You can see here back in 2015, this house sold for $235,000. What a deal. And now it's listed for $515,000. That's one of the reasons why I love real estate so much, is because when you see wins like that for this homeowner, that's awesome. This guy's walking away with over $200,000 of equity in his property, potentially even more than that. So one thing to think about, if you are a first-time home buyer, don't get caught up in all the media and what they're telling you about maybe now's not the right time to buy. The right time to buy is when you can afford to buy, and if it makes sense for you. Because not everyone's situation is you're gonna buy it at the right perfect time with the right interest rate or the absolute lowest part of the market. Like I've told my story before, I bought my house and the market was still going down. I lost probably 30% of equity in the house when I initially paid for it. But today I've got close to $300,000 of equity in the property. And again, if I would have listened to the media, I probably would have never bought the house. So kudos to this guy or gal that bought this property and now they're selling at a great time and making some profit on it. So you can look at the property taxes. It's also on here. They last assessed it in 2021. Annual taxes of $1,657. So you could probably even buffer that going into this year since they haven't assessed it as of yet. But let's run down the monthly numbers on this property. So our principal and interest, we are going to look at a 20% down payment. We're just going to assume that Jose has a 720 credit score. And today's par interest rate, you're looking at 5.75%. Now, some of you might have fallen out of your chair by hearing that number, but know that even in the fives, that's still a low rate if you go back and you look at the historical rates over the last 50 years. 5.75 is still an amazing interest rate. We're going to factor in the property taxes, and we said that they were $1,657 last year. Okay, so now as we look at the property taxes, we're just going to make a quick adjustment because the website was a little low. And again, we're just going to buffer in a 40% rate just to anticipate property taxes increasing for the next person when this property trades hands. Homeowners insurance of $180 a month. I think that's a little high. So we can probably drop that to about $150 a month or so. And again, we're factoring the HOA payment. And when we look at the all-in number, you're looking at about $27.85 a month for this property. Pretty good deal if you're asking me. I would definitely take a look at now, what is it going to take? How much income do you need to actually make this property work? So let's hop over to my iPad and we're gonna run some numbers. Okay, so as you know, we've just broke down our principal and interest, taxes and insurance. And the acronym in the mortgage industry, the mortgage lingo, is PITI. That number is $27.85 a month. Now, when we look at qualifying someone for their home purchase, we are going to pull their credit and we are going to look at the debt that shows up on the credit report. So let's just say Jose has a car payment. We're going to assume Jose is driving a nice car and he's paying $500 a month for his vehicle. We're also going to look at your credit card balances. Now, the one thing that we look at when it comes to the credit card balances is what is the minimum payment? Many of you think that the lender is going to look at the total balance that's on the card. That's a misconception. We don't necessarily care that you might have a credit card with a $10,000 balance. All we are going to be looking at is what is the minimum payment on that credit card. So let's just say Jose's got a couple of credit cards and those minimum payments total $200 a month. Now, there's also student loans that show up on credit reports. We also take that into account. Make sure that if you have any federal student loan debt, you are not in collections or in arrears, because that does affect you qualifying for the mortgage. If you are on a repayment plan, just let your loan officer know, because there's ways that we can address that, but we just need to know that stuff up front, which is why pulling the credit report is so important. Other things that could show up on the credit report would be personal loans, installment loans. If you have any of that stuff, we will factor in, again, the minimum payment. Don't be concerned about your cell phone bill or your utilities or anything like that, because again, that doesn't show up on the credit report. So we're not going to factor that in as part of the qualifying process. So let's just say Jose only has a car payment and his credit cards. So when we tally our number up, we have a total debt service of $3,485 a month. And again, this is including the mortgage payment. So now most lenders, when we look at qualifying somebody, we usually want to keep your debt to income ratio under a certain amount. And really the number is anywhere between 43-45% totally of your total gross income. So let's just take 45%, and all we're going to do is just divide that by 0.45, which will then give us $7,744 a month in gross monthly income. So remember, gross income is before your taxes, before any deductions gets taken out. So if you are a W-2 employee, Jose, if you're watching this, you need to make about $7,700 a month. Again, this is also factoring in these two debts here. So if, let's say Jose doesn't have any of this debt, you could obviously make less money when it comes to qualifying. So we may not need the full $7,700. This is why it's so important to talk to a loan officer, because let's just say you and your buddy were comparing notes and trying to qualify for a mortgage. You guys maybe make the same amount of money. Maybe you think you have the same amount of debt. However, what if your buddy has a lot more debt than you do? He could easily not qualify for the mortgage simply because he has more debt that the loan officer has to account for. That's why when talking to a lender, they will give you a customized plan. And that's why every mortgage is not necessarily a one size fits all. And having that conversation with a loan officer is really important, because they can then advise you what it's going to take for you to cross the line and become a homeowner, because the guy next to you could be completely different as far as income, debt, the amount of money they can put down. There's so many factors that we have to account for when qualifying someone to purchase a home. Income is only one of the things that we strongly look at. But in this case, you would need about $7,700 in order to qualify for the mortgage. Now, one of the things you could also take a look at is buying down your interest rate. So in this case, if we were to pay one discount point or 1% to buy the interest rate down, we can actually get the rate down to 5.375%, which would actually get the new payment $2,688. And we're going to compare that to the old payment of $2,785. So one of the things that you could do if you do have some extra cash to help you qualify is you can talk to your lender about buying points or buying your interest rate down. So in this case, we went from 5.75% down to 5.375%, and it would cost us about an extra $4,000 to do that. Now, one of the things that you want to take a look at in order to figure out is this worth paying the points or not is your break-even point. So let's just take our loan amount here. So our loan amount is $412,000. Again, that's the 515 sales price times the 20% down, where it leaves us at 412. And we have a monthly savings of $97, because we're just going to take 1% of the loan amount. So that'll be 4120, and we're going to divide that by 97, which is our monthly savings. Gives us about 42 months. So Jose, if you are looking at potentially buying your rate down, getting you a lower interest rate, getting you a little more buying power, you could certainly do that if you have some cash to be able to put down. It would save you in this specific scenario about $97 a month. So if you were planning on living in the home for longer than 42 months, I personally would look at recommending buying your rate down, take the lower interest rate, because you will recoup the money at the 42-month period. However, if you plan to sell or refinance or move out of the house within that 42-month period, I would just take the par rate, which is the 5.75% that we covered, and you'd be able to qualify and move into your home. So if you're having trouble qualifying for your mortgage, make sure to talk to your lender about buy down options, or even potentially looking at an adjustable rate mortgage. That may get you some buying power in today's volatile market. And if you're thinking about buying anywhere else across the country, comment below. We can put together a custom scenario for you to see if you can qualify for your next home purchase. And you can hit the description below. There's links to more information on how to get your mortgage right.